Welcome to We Talk Spanglish with your host, Manefta. Welcome back to We Talk Spanglish. Today marks 34 years since Hurricane Andrew hit and destroyed Miami. I still can't believe it's been 34 years. Que vieja estoy. Yo, de pinga esto. At least I recognize that shit. So I have so many comments that you guys sent me from the last post, which was me just talking about all the things that I went through. And we're going to talk about my story and what happened that day and how crazy it was and what I remember. I did call my mom this morning and I was like, Mommy, I need a recap. And she's like, what do you mean you need a recap? I was like, you need to remind me of like the timestamps of stuff because I feel like I was too small to remember that, like the time it hit us and certain events and certain things that happened. And like she knows what time that was, but I didn't. I just knew that it happened. And you guys writing to me and telling me all of your experiences. I went through a bunch of them and I have some really good ones that I want to share and talk about areas and what happened. But first, I want to look up the actual details from this storm and make sure that everything that I'm saying is completely accurate. But let me tell you, Hurricane Andrew was crazy and it hit different parts. It was supposed to hit more of like the Fort Lauderdale area, which is what they were projecting, and that's not what happened. It literally hit, the worst part was in Homestead, which is the very end almost of Miami before you get to the Keys. So basically almost the Keys. It destroyed the Keys. It destroyed everything more south. It shifted. And I remember, it was very little time to prepare and to get things ready or to have things brought so that, we can have help and aid. It was just very unorganized. We were very unprepared. And that I totally remember. And I think we can all agree on the fact that we were not prepared for that storm. And even codes and like building codes and stuff changed after that. But let's see how fast this motherfucker went. Highest winds were 175 miles per hour. The lowest pressure was 922 mbar, which is crazy. There was 65 total of fatalities. And the cost of damages was $27.3 billion in 1992. So just think about that back then. It was the costliest tropical cyclone on the record at the time. The areas that were affected were the Bahamas, Southeastern United States, Mid-Atlantic, and states. Well, yeah, the states. It destroyed everything in Miami. And it was difficult to rebuild from that, but I feel like all the way that we do things and the way Miami's Cuban infested. Cuba infested. So if you don't think that it's little Cuba, you don't know Miami. However, Miami has changed a lot. And over the last, I want to say a course of like 5 or 6 years, it has changed a lot. But I want to talk about my experience. I remember I was eight and my birthday was in a couple weeks. I was so excited about turning 9, super excited, had everything ready. And I remember my mom calling my dad. I remember seeing a lot of colas, like lines in the stores. And I'm thinking, why are the gas stations so full of cars and stuff? Like, that's so weird. And my mom was like, oh no, we have to get stuff because we have to prepare for a storm. And I'm like, okay, a storm. So my mom is like, there's nothing in the streets. They had to go to like gas stations to get food. And, she's calling my dad and telling him this, like, hey, you're helping the front door neighbor board up his house, but we don't have anything. By the time they ended up going to Home Depot, there was nothing left. So they ended up finding tape, which was the only thing that was left. And I feel like a lot of people resorted to the tape because at least it would hold the glass together if it broke. So that was the only thing that they were able to find. There was, I think, 7 hours to prepare for this storm. And everyone was scattering in the streets. They were selling things for more expensive than they should, which is very normal. So in that, my mom's trying to get gas. And she finds a couple things, perishable goods at the gas station. She was able to put gas. We go home, and then my grandmother and my aunt from my dad's side, his sister, she was like 6 months pregnant with my cousin Chachi. And my two cousins, Nani and Joshua, they were with us during the storm too because they didn't have a place to go that was safe. So they came to our house, which my mom was terrified because we lived in Jasmine, which is in the hammocks. Not a good place. It got hit very, very, very hard. But there's a huge lake back there. So my mom's thinking to herself, there's this huge lake behind my house. It was new construction. There was very little neighbors. I want to say there was like only 12 people living there. So everything else in that neighborhood at that moment was mainly like construction because they were still building the houses. It was not a very populated area in Kendall yet, but however, it was populating and it was growing rapidly. And my mom was like, let's just prepare everything the best we can. So I remember being in the room and we fell asleep because the storm hit at night. And we prepared everything the best we could. We had a Dalmatian and we had a bird, which was my mom's yellowneck Amazon. And it's like an actual parrot that talks. So they put the dog and the parrot together in the downstairs bathroom that was small with no windows. And we prepared all the bathtubs. We filled up all the bathtubs in the house. And then we were like, okay, the safest place is this bathroom because there's no windows in here. So, when things get real bad, they gave us the rundown. Like, I felt like they were telling us how ready they were, but I will never, ever forget how unready they were. And it wasn't their fault, honestly. But so they did the best that they could. Think about it now. And I'm so traumatized by what happened and the events that took place after that I genuinely panic. And I see people here in Tampa and they don't panic like that. They don't run out to put gas. They don't board up their windows. They don't do any of that. So for Milton that came, I packed my shit and I left to Miami. Because what the fuck you mean we ain't got no shutters? The fuck you talking about? I was terrified. However, back to Andrew. Andrew, we were waiting for the storm. I had fallen asleep. We were in my mom's master bedroom. I remember sleeping in there. And she had two French doors and a balcony. When I tell you that door was rattling and they were like, okay, we gotta go. We gotta move. I think she said the bathroom, downstairs living room window was the first one to break. So the house had a lot of big windows that were like top to bottom in like the living room. It was a big house. I had 5 bedrooms. And it was terrifying to think that those windows were taped the best that they could because I don't even think they made it all the way to the top because it was very high. And the cortinas were really long. That was the first window to break. The wind sounded like a train, like a woman screaming and a train like squealing, like, whoo. I can't even imagine or explain how it sounds. It's almost like you're in a trance, like it's so loud that you can't talk to each other, you can't hear each other. It's more like sign to each other because it is so fucking loud. So, when it starts hitting, my grandfather was trying to, I think, smoke a cigarette. I'm not exactly sure. And he opened the door and that's when the door almost he went in the air. They closed the door and they were like, let's go to the bathroom. That was the first move. That was section 1 or sector 1, should I say. We made it. Llegamos al baño. Everybody's safe. My aunt is 6 months pregnant, so my mom is fucking freaking out. My grandmother and my grandfather and my 2 little cousins are with all of us. There's a lot of people. They had parked the cars. The plan was that if it gets bad, we go to the bathroom. If it gets too bad, we go downstairs and get inside the cars. And if we feel like the house is coming down or the roof is caving or the house is collapsing, we're going to get in the cars and leave. Plot twist, but we'll get to that. So it's getting worse and worse and worse, and my grandfather's freaking out. And my grandmother le metió un Xanax. She's like, here, have a Xanax. Shut the fuck up. Thankfully, it worked. He was still tripping. I remember that. I remember him bad tripping a lot. And then it got to the point where the house was shaking and we were rocking. And that was very uncomfortable. We were like, okay, do we have stairs to go downstairs to get downstairs? So my mom and my dad were quick. They were like, let's check. My dad opened that door and it was a war zone. It was the most eerie thing that you can hear. It's this loud screeching noise. And the house is moving, which totally not fucking normal. So everything was a first. And it was terrifying. Everything was wet. The house already had broken windows. My mom's French doors were already busted through. So right after we left, I'm assuming those doors just busted open and stayed like that. So it was like a whirlwind because the window downstairs connected to all that. And it was in the house. It was terrifying. So thankfully they made that decision and we went downstairs. And as we're going downstairs, everything was wet. Already the house was wet. There was glass on the floor. It was glass everywhere. I remember looking to my right coming down the stairs and the blinds were like the long skinny blinds. They were in the wall like shards, like a knife. It was, my mom must have pictures of that somewhere. I know she does. And they were in the wall, stuck in the wall. There was no way to get that out. We were on the way out at this point. The house is gonna collapse. And we made it downstairs. I remember twisting my foot and I was crying that it hurt my foot. And he's like, get in the garage, muchacha, come mierda. I got in the garage. Everyone got in the garage. We get in the cars and my mom's like, the boys with the boys and the girls with the girls get in the car. The house had gas. It had a gas connection. So my mom, thankfully, was on top of it. I know she was, getting us in and out of that area and then just closing the door. They were trying to open the garage door and it wouldn't open. Something was pinning it down from the outside. So they couldn't open the garage door. And they were trying to do it manually. So they were doing it little by little while we were sitting in the car, which it was very, very hot. And my grandfather was nervous and he decided that it was a good idea to smoke a cigarette because he needed to smoke a cigarette to calm his nerves. Pobrecito. And my mom is like, I smell gas. And at that very moment, she grabs a cigarette from him and she's like, oh my God. And thankfully, he did not spark the cigarette. I'm still here. And my dad was like so nervous. And I guess that whole commotion of the gas and the cigarette and the going up and down and coming from upstairs to downstairs, it really got to his stomach. So he just started throwing up. I remember him throwing up. Blah, blah. They were opening the garage door from what I can remember a little bit. And then once it started calming down, which was I think it was like 30 minutes of relief. I remember that it was almost the morning. You could see a little bit of sun. We were sitting by the living room area. We checked on the dog and the bird. The wind had calmed down a little bit. And we were like so exhausted. We were sitting on that couch. I remember it was like maybe 30 minutes. And then after that, we went back into the garage and pretty much that was it. 8 a.m, I think, is when it was over. And it was something that I will never forget. I remember going outside after that. We were picking up glass for days. All the street signs were missing. There was no lights. There was no running water. A lot of areas were hit. Like Homestead was hit so badly. Like it was flattened. A lot of areas in Kendall were flattened. And flattened. A lot of people were missing roofs. They were missing like sides of their houses, like walls, whole walls. The pressure that came from that hurricane was so intense that it was rupturing the houses, like literally popping the roofs off. And then it would just take it. There was a lot of tornadoes inside of Andrew as well. And it was just pure devastation after. But I'm also like so proud of where I come from because at the same time, Miami held their own. Miami came together and, we were playing games. We were playing domino. There was music. There was the tedious times where they were like scary because at night there was a guy guarding, I think my dad had 2 generators and we powered like 5 refrigerators that they were in the front of the house. And everyone just had their refrigerators out. Like we didn't have anywhere to like hide it or put it away. You can't put the generator in the house. So they would guard it. And you would see that everywhere. There was looting. FEMA didn't come for a while. That was a harsh reality that we were not going to get help for a little bit. We were fucked. And that makes me think of Katrina because I don't know if you've seen that documentary, the Katrina one, because it's great. Amazing. What happened there was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. But Miami was pretty bad. But the people came together. And like my front door neighbor, they had a pool. So everyone was using that pool water. God forbid I ever have to do that again. I was so itchy. I remember being itchy. It was itchy. We were bathing with pool water. they had created like a little tent for like an outhouse. So like, you know, they would shower you with the buckets, and then you would go in the little tent and you would, you know, change and dry yourself or whatever in there. And, you know, the girls would guard that. The women, the moms would guard that area to make sure that, you know, there wasn't anybody peeping or looking. We had kids, and it became very communal. It became something that I did not know that we can do. Everyone was so humbled and so giving. You had the shiesty motherfuckers selling water for $10 a pop. Oh, I remember that. I remember those fuckers. If you were those one of the fuck you asshole. That's fucked up. You don't do shit like that. But we did hold our own, and we did come together. And then you guys sent me so many stories, and there's some that I want to talk about because I feel like they hit home. So many things that I might have forgotten that we did during that time. Like, for example, school was out till like mid-September, I think the end of September. And then that didn't really fix itself for a hot minute. It took a while for that to fix. It was just so many things, but you guys coming up and saying all of the different things was so awesome to me because it brought back memories to me. Okay, so let's go back. Little Miss Monroe, I'm a Hurricane Andrew survivor. It was crazy. I never seen such destruction. I remember having to sleep under the dining room table in my grandparents' house. All used siblings stacked on each other. I remember hearing everything and my parents trying to close windows, and it was just insane. When we opened up to see the damage, it was like a bomb went off in our entire neighborhood. Like the damage was unbelievable. Yes, it was. And it was something that I don't think we will ever forget. Even being 34 years later, I remember so many details for being so little. And it was crazy. Let me see. I was about to start my sophomore year in high school and got pushed back. You see? The days for school, because school was supposed to start earlier. And we got hit by this massive hurricane. And it totally fucked us. Let me see. My friend's treehouse from another cul-de-sac slammed into our roof. Our roof lifted a few inches and then slammed back down. I will never forget the sound of the wind howling. If you know, you know. Oh my God, I think about it and I'm like, ugh. The water was coming in our house and was going up the wall from the amount of pressure there was. The pressure was crazy. I don't think people talk about that enough. The pressure from Hurricane Andrew was like no other. It was crazy because we've been through some other hurricanes after that. So Katrina, Irma, they were bad. Hurricane Andrew survivor. It was something I will never forget and taught me to respect Mother Nature. The memory lives in my mind as if it were yesterday. We're all mind fucked with this. We are traumatized. And I love reading these things. I thought it would be so fun to read it on the podcast together. And everyone basically gives their thoughts and opinions. And I love that. So the wind is howling is something I will never forget. Another person. Tape on the windows. Who needs plywood? ? We survived with tape. LOL. We did. We actually fucking did. Because when I tell you there was not a piece of plywood left for anyone to use, and this was before shutters were an actual thing. So, I mean, yeah, it was that fucking bad. It was that bad. The tomato juice from the Red Cross hit hard. Oh, fire emoji. I remember that. I remember eran los tomaticos. They were the tomaticos. Oh, that's great. And don't think anybody didn't add a little Corona to that. Ooh, a little chelada, girl. I was 3 years old and still remember standing outside and the howling wind. My dad and uncle say it was saying it was time to get inside. Yeah, when you hear the howling, it's definitely time to get inside. Wow. Hurricane Andrew survivor here. It was rough for almost a month and a half. And the survivor mode for Cuban parents was a core memory. No electricity and cleaning running water. But we made it happen with barbecue, meats, and all the side dishes. And bathing in the pool. Absolutely. I remember that. We all did it. We all had to do it. It humbled all of us. It really fucking did. Like, you think you're running shit? Let me show you how Mother Nature can change that for a bitch. And she did. She did for all of us. And it took Miami years to get back on their feet. We had missing street signs for so long, for years after that. But we did recoup pretty good and made everything nice and pretty, even though she overcrowded as fuck right now. I'll never forget, I was supposed to start FIU, but it got pushed back. When I finally got there, there was poor people living in the hallways as it was a shelter. Yeah, there was nowhere to go. Everything was destroyed. Hotels, hospitals didn't have light or water as well. They had like backups. The maternity ward, I hear, was very scary. Someone wrote something about that in here. I'm trying to get through all of them so I can share them with you guys. Yes, all of us, with the dog, the cat, and the bird in the bathroom. Everybody was in the bathroom. The sound was like a fast train. It was crazy, that sound. West Kendall survivor here. Some scary times, absolutely. Shout out to y'all Andrew survivors. I remember it vividly. I was in high school in New York and it looked like a bomb had dropped down on South Florida. I can't even recall hearing about hurricanes prior to Andrew. I moved here and bought a condo in North Bay Village in 2005. Andrew was the reason why I bought flood insurance for the property. And I remember the broker laughed because I was on the 23rd floor. I said, I don't care. I want it anyways. Then we got hit with Wilma. It was bad. My condo was on the front page of the Miami Herald, but guess what? The separate insurance I had with flood saved me because while everyone had to wait on the association to get repairs done, I had a check within 5 days and got my unit fixed quick. The only reason they covered my damages was specifically because I had the flood insurance, they told me. Fun times. That's a good one. I love that one. That's great. Oh, wow. Country Walk survivor. Remember it like yesterday. Yeah, same. Let me see. Here it is. I found her. Her name is Diane. Rode that out at Baptist Hospital when the windows in the private rooms were shaking the entire wall. They would blow in like bubblegum. I kept calling the nurse saying, them windows are not going to hold. I got the no va pasar nada. Cierra la cortina. Close the blinds, she told her. Nothing's going to happen. You'll be okay. Yeah, no. I opened the curtains up again and sure as shit, not 5 minutes later, a broken window in maternity. We were all moved into the hallways. Then the power went off. No AC. Viejitos were dropping. It was insane. Oh my God. It's not funny. It's terrible. It's just crazy reading this back to think that we survived through that we went through something so traumatic like that as a community. Not as like a person or a whole, because, you know, you can get help. You can get some cushion. There was no cushion, bitch. We had to raw dog it. Okay, raw dog all of it. Like nature, the heat, the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes should have an episode of their own on this podcast because, geez, Louise, the mosquitoes. My dad opened the back door to catch the aluminum roof from the backyard being ripped off and he almost went with it. Yes, it was bad. Proud and loud with priorities on deck. Before power went out, cooked an entire fridge and then hunkered down when the power went out. Plenty of flour. Remember, this was pre-medicinal days, so we were blazing wacky tobacco. She's not lying. That's great. Girl, it was the literal worst shit ever. 2.5 weeks without power. Pfft. I think we were out for like a month. I still have PTSD from it. P.S. My Cuban dad was the same. Then almost shit a brick when the sliding glass doors in the back of the house were literally separating from each other like those motherfuckers were breathing with the wind. They were. You are so right about that. You see? Reading these things triggers my memory to like remember more shit. Oh my God. What? It's true. She is so right. And I think every Cuban dad was like, no va a pasar nada, aka nothing's gonna happen. You'll see, it's just a storm. No. We are traumatized 34 years later, okay? I can't. Let's see, I have more. There's so many comments, you guys. Wow. Monopoly was an 8-hour game. That's so true. Cry. Homestead was the strongest, yes, and they got hit the hardest for sure. It was devastating to see my Miami like that. It was terrible. Andrew Survivor over here. I was 14 and lived in Hialeah. Boy, those glass sliding doors were jiggling. I'm literally reading this straight off my Instagram. The house was shaking and it sounded like a freight train was going right by us. I thought the house was going to come out of the ground like Wizard of Oz. Insane. I remember it all. From the sky turning green before it arrived, the aftermath, my cousin and I got a ride in a military helicopter. Don't ask. Over Homestead, and it looked like a giant had stepped on the homes. This is how I remember it. I was 13. Yeah, you remember it just about right. I think we're all mind fucked by Andrew. Anybody that's an Andrew survivor that has a child named Andrew, you're a fucking masochist. You're a demon. That's just too much. Survivor here. The sounds of the storm was scarier than the Poltergeist movie. And let me tell you, that is when I realized how many beads there are in a rosary, because my poor grandmother was rubbing it so hard, popped and scared the shit out of all of us. Never again will I stay for a hurricane. I leave town. I'm with you, sister. I be leaving sometimes. Depending on the severity of it, I'm like, yeah, I think we gotta fucking leave. I'm not doing this shit. I don't want to be here for the aftermath. I already did it. I paid my dues. Yeah, no. I was 15 years old. We had hurricane shutters because my grandma was paralyzed and she was scared of storms, having lived in Miami since the 30s. So she had them installed in our house. My mom fell asleep, and then when the wind started to pick up, I wanted to see it. So I opened our front door and almost got sucked out of the house and didn't get the door shut. Couldn't get the door shut again. I'll never forget. The roof was breathing. You see? Oh my God. Oh my God. And that sound was practically indescribable. While hiding in the bathroom with a battery-powered TV, a neighbor brought over. Waking up, all the landmarks were gone, and the grilling that we did with the neighbors after on the front porch, because all the food was going to spoil anyways. Proud Andrew survivor. Oh, I love that. That was a good one. You open the door, you fucking piece of shit. You were the safest out of everybody. You were probably the few with fucking shutters. Espada una galleta. Oh my God. I'm sure they still talk about that story to this day. That was a great one. I'm so glad you posted that. Who remembers all the monkeys running around from Monkey Jungle and Homestead Air Force Base was a war zone? Dude, I will not forget. And all the parakeets. Do you remember all the parakeets escaped? And we had wild parakeets. There's still wild parakeets in Miami because of Hurricane Andrew. Oh my God, the monkeys were everywhere. And they were coming out on the news and the reporters were like literally swarmed with monkeys. I need to find a clip of that and put that in here. I need to find that. That is such a core memory. Oh my God. That's great. We learned a lot going through that storm. I agree. We did. We learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things from that storm that I will never ever take for granted. Like Power. I love you, Power. Yeah. I have my I Survived Andrew shirt. I want one. The fuck? I feel like we should have all got one for free at this point. I would have been a little small, but that's okay. You know, I would have made it work. Sure brought back memories. I remember my grandmother passed away the week before. My parents were out of it because of the funeral, and my dad had nothing prepared. Oh no. At the last minute, he boarded the master bedroom window. We were all in there. That's the first time I saw my dad pull out a rosary and start praying. That's when I knew shit was going down. Bro, the terror, bro. Everyone was terrified, man. Wow, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. I mean, I'm glad he at least boarded up that window for you guys to be in that room. Oh, wait, there's more. She wrote, and I thought it was great to keep my contacts, so it dried out in my eye, and when I took it off, I scratched it inside my eye that I couldn't open my eyes for another 2 weeks. So no electricity, emergency appointment with the eye doctor, and I was blind for 2 weeks in that heat. Oh, girl, you had the ugly end of the stick. God damn. I'm going to write back to her. Just shared your story with my podcast. Proud Andrew survivor. Girl, I was 7 months pregnant, sleeping in the hallway of my house. Crazy times, but here we are. The fuck? We are here, girl. We made it. Flew over Florida City Homestead. Kendall afterwards, getting footage for different news outlets. Oh, this is great. The only thing that never stopped was the Bell South signal. Bell South? Oh my God. I can't even get past that. And the only thing that never stopped was the Bell South signal on your home phone. The entire house could be gone, but you picked up your phone and you still had a dial tone. That was incredible. Damn, what a memory. Bro, when the power came on, I was living in the hammocks, West Kendall. I think that when the power came on, everyone was like, oh, oh, and then like trying to see who had power so we could go to their house. Because, bitch, we were hot. My parents weren't shit. I was 5 years old. My brother wasn't even one. My grandmother was visiting from Nicaragua. Why did these motherfuckers think that it was appropriate to go clubbing? When the news was literally saying a hurricane was on the way and that they were at the club when it got shut down. And the announcement says that the hurricane is heading your way, our way. Go get what you can and head home. My grandma wasn't willing to travel as much anymore after. Oh my God. El Tiki Tiki no para Miami. Rave Cave. Wow. The ravers. The ravers came home late. Coleridge head-on collision with Andrew survivor. Sounded like a train was coming. Pressure in your ears was crazy, and not recognizing your own neighborhood after. Crazy times. Shout out to Brian Norcos for guiding us through that storm and helping us keep calm. Damn, I'm glad you remember all that information because I didn't. I was too young. So that's incredible that we still talk about these things because the more we talk about it, the more we remember other things and names and events like the monkeys, like school. Crazy. My freaking roof flew off. Yeah, a lot of roofs flew off. It was crazy. Andrew survivor here. I was 8 months pregnant. Didn't go to the hospital because they wouldn't let me take my 1-year-old in the middle of this horrific hurricane. I got contractions, and just imagine in a house full of your grandmothers and all her sisters, your parents, everybody and their mother asking me every 5 minutes that I was okay. I had to literally close the door and go to my room and told everyone to leave me alone, and I started praying to God like I had never prayed before. I prayed to God, and the next thing I remember, I could feel the baby going around in a circle. I was terrified. After a little while of praying and contractions went away, thank God. So imagine 8 months pregnant, no electricity, no in the heat, and unbearable. But I was so grateful. 4 days later, I gave birth at Mount Sinai. I passed a hurricane in Kendall, and my father had a farm on Chrome with 125 avocado trees that they were no longer there. In the farm string race, it was crazy. My son's birthday is 8/28. He was actually born on his due date, and he is a little hurricane. Well, now he's in his 30s, of course, but he was a little hurricane. Hey, did you name him Andrew? That's crazy. I can't believe it. There are so many things and so many stories on my Instagram that everybody shared, and it's such a great thing to go back and relive these things to kind of remind you to stay humble and remind us to be thankful for the things that we do have right now that we take for granted every single day, and that someone else is going through something harder at this very moment, because in that rest of the world was moving, but we were standing still. And we had to go through that, and that was our fight, and we did it. And I'm so proud of us, and I'm so glad that I posted that and we talked about it, and I'm glad to have been able to share all these cool stories with you guys. So if you're watching this, share it with someone. I'll try to put some pictures in so you guys can see them, maybe even after the end of this episode. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this podcast because I had a really good time. Thanks. I love you. Bye.
Back up, back up. Boy, look at those trees.
to do that, but it is absolute devastation. Just popped them off like matchsticks.
Steve Slater. Where are you guys?
When we moved down at 65,